This video is now in session. In the previous partisan opinion video that I made, I talked about how important education would be if we were to go against China in a race of innovation. And today I'm going to expand more on that. Education is how we teach our next generation is what gives our next generation opportunities. Without quality education, a lot of people would not be able to have or be able to operate jobs, specialized jobs that we had today. If we just look back on history, it's only been a couple hundred months since a couple hundred years. A couple hundred years, yeah. Since specialized jobs became a thing. And as a result, education is right now the key to that specialized industry. So what we need to be doing in America as a result is funding more in terms of education, giving teachers resources, because that's ultimately going to solve our issue with China, better education. And we can just take a look at this with more past precedent. If you looked at the Russia space program versus the United States program, so the space race that occurred in the mid to late 1900s, then you'll see that America spent a lot of money on getting people good education, giving people education, and then letting people pay loans based off of that education. So that's how the US was the first nation to get onto the moon before Russia. It was because of education. So we have past precedent there. So we can apply it to here with China. China, if we want to go against them, we have to strengthen our education system. Because a lot of politicians these days, when they talk about going against China, they say we need to bring manufacturing jobs to the United States, back to the United States. But that's, in some ways, that is inept, especially if you want to bring low income, low skilled manufacturing jobs, because we're simply not going to win that race. China has much less regulatory rules, and as well as having a smaller legal minimum wage. Here in the United States, our legal minimum wage is around a little above $7, and Democrats are planning to bring that up to $15 by 2025. So there isn't really going to be a way where we can win against China in low skilled and low cost manufacturing jobs. And would you even want that kind of job? It's not a job you would really want. Because again, it's low income. Wouldn't you want a higher source or a higher income job? So in order to win, I guess, against China, we have to focus more on higher income manufacturing jobs, but also innovation or research centers or technology and entrepreneurial work. These are all places we should be investing instead of trying to get income, low skilled manufacturing jobs back to the United States. And to achieve that, you have to improve the education system. We have to improve the education system, not just for those with power and privilege, but also and especially towards those with a lower income, those who are minorities, because studies show that minorities get less quality education just because of where they live in. Low income families get a lower grade education just because of where they live. And children shouldn't have to deserve that. Children don't deserve that. Their destiny, they did not choose to live in a low income housing. That was not their situation to choose. So we shouldn't punish them by giving them less quality education. So the United States, to solve this, has to put more funding in education, and it's something that we've been lacking in for the past several decades. We haven't funded enough in education, and we can simply take a lot of the money away from the Department of Defense, or we could try to tax the wealthiest people in America. But nonetheless, there are definitely ways to fund education, and that's what we should be doing. I constantly hear about teachers who who have a lack of resources to give to their children, their students. And that's just because of how low their school budget is, how low their budget is to get these materials, get books, textbooks, learning materials. And as a result, they have to take money from their own income to pay off that resource. And sometimes teachers can't even afford that, so they have to give their students what they can based off of the school budget. So we should be giving teachers more money. They are the ones that educate our future. They are the ones that in some ways determine how successful the next generation is going to be. So we ought to give them more to do good teaching. We also have to hire more teachers. We're starting to face a shortage in teachers, and that involves things like incentivizing teaching children, teaching others. And it doesn't have to be like preschool teachers. It can be professors. We're facing a lack of professors, and this starts to get into private colleges or colleges who colleges that hire professors. And in recent years, we've seen how colleges have started to reduce the amount of professors needed in each class and try to fit as many students into each class as possible. Especially with emerging fields like computer science, we see professors that have to teach hundreds of people in a class in order to fulfill the demand. So we have to better educate our teachers, and we also have to hire more teachers. What we also need to do, though, is expand our school infrastructure. We are, in several places, in a lot of places, we are facing a shortage in classroom spaces. So it's up to the state government, to fund expansions of school districts, and state government gets a lot of their funding from the federal government. So it starts at the very top, where we need to fund state governments so that they can fund schools. And this is not just an opportunity to win against China in a race of innovation. I've been talking a lot about China, but we can also talk about how this solves a lot of the racial inequity issues we face today. By giving minorities, or those with lower income, who typically are Black Americans, the same opportunities as those with power and privilege, then they will also have the same opportunity to get a higher position in corporate America. Now, obviously, there have been strides made to get minorities on executive boards, to give them positions of high salaries, of high prestige. But it ultimately takes education, and given these people who have been disenfranchised of their education an opportunity to receive quality education, to then receive an opportunity and to be part of those with power and privilege. It also solves a lot of the issues that people are usually ignorant on. One example of this is climate change. It solves climate change. Well, not it solves climate change, but it helps to give the population more information on climate change, because if we have more quality education, then that involves giving people the truth and giving people information about these issues like climate change. We also, as part of the education problem, we can do this to solve the student loan debt. Now, of course, funding more of education doesn't mean that we're going to solve student loan debt, because that takes a whole new solution. But once we solve a lot of the student loan debt that we're facing through policies that include rescinding third-party companies from managing these loans, having the government managing these loans instead, doing litigation against these companies, and as well as making sure that people can actually pay off their loans, and as well as lower the college tuition, because the college tuition is becoming higher and higher even after you adjust it for inflation. Once we solve all of these issues, if we solve all of these issues, then it gives the new generation a better opportunity to do what fulfills them in life instead of trying to pay off their student loan debt. The loans were introduced as part of the space race, and its original intention was to get people to go into higher education so that they can then fulfill a higher income job. But what we've seen student loan debt transpire into is a situation where people go into college so that they can have higher opportunities, but then have to struggle to pay all of that once they get out of college. So we have to fix how student loan debt works in order to facilitate all of this. And once we get the student loan debt fixed, and once we get education reformed, we can give the same opportunity of quality education to everyone, no matter if they are from urban, suburban, or rural America, no matter if they are from the contiguous 48 United States or from a U.S. territory, no matter if they're Black, Hispanic, Caucasian, or Asian, and no matter if they have or if they're from a neighborhood of low income or high income. So that's my take on education, where to solve a lot of the issues that we have today, we have to first solve education. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be doing another a partisan opinion video in probably 2 days from now. But until then, this session is adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.